It's a massive time for Welsh football. We're so excited about what's coming up. So, Mr. Mooney, Noel, it's great to have your company. What sort of atmosphere is there around the place right now? Are everybody aware of what's at stake at the minute for Welsh football?
It's electric. I mean, I just came from upstairs with the staff and everyone's just really focused on the next few weeks. They're halcyon days, I suppose, for Welsh football. We've just qualified for 2 men's tournaments. We're on the cusp of qualifying for a World Cup for the first time. Our women's team is flying. I think Gemma's done a brilliant job there. So hopefully we'll qualify for the Women's World Cup as well. But we've 5 games coming up in 2 weeks. I think the nation is waiting to see how them, especially the 5th of June, of course, is a huge focus for us. But we have to remember there's 4 other games around them which are Division A of the Nations League. It's the top division in world football. We're now 18th in the world. So it's all to play for. I know from talking to a few of the players over the last couple of weeks that they're really absolutely focused. It's funny because a lot of them are coming to the end of their season, their club season. But the family feeling around Cymru is quite special. When I talk to some of the really senior players who've been there, done that, I just know when I look in their eyes that this is it for them, that this really is their moment to really write their names in the stars and write their names in history and to bring Cymru even more to the world stage. I mean, look, if the worst comes to worst and we don't get through on the 5th of June, they'll have done so much for the country and they'll have brought the FAW, Welsh football, to the world stage.
And we're a football nation now. It's official. That's quite a thing. You can retire now. We can all quit now. We've done what we wanted to do.
Well, that's only the start. So yeah, we had independent research that said that football, from an interest perspective and from a participation perspective, is the #1 sport in Wales, which is great. If you love football, of course, my heart beats for football. So I'm delighted to see that. Having worked for UEFA in many countries, of course, football is the #1 country. So it's nothing unusual, I suppose. But at the same time, it's only the start for us. We've got a big journey over the next few years to take. We're at the start of that. There will be a lot of change. There'll be a lot of evolution of the FAW and of the people around it, the people within it, to make us more diverse, to make us stronger, to make us better. But certainly for everyone here, when you know that you are the #1 interest sport and the #1 participation sport, it's a great fill-up for us, I suppose.
In terms of this massive playoff game, Noel, of course, your time at the FAI, you would have seen firsthand just what qualifying for a World Cup can do to a country, because, you know, in the early 90s, I think it transformed Ireland, and it's fair to say it could do very much the same thing here in Wales.
Well, you're right to say, Shauna, it transformed the country. It's not just a football thing, because a World Cup, Ireland qualified in 1990 for the World Cup in Italia 90, the famous Nessun Dorma Gaza. And for the country, it kicked off the Celtic Tiger. I know there's research done to show the confidence it gives a nation. And here in Cymru, obviously, we live beside Big Brother, if you will. The players really believe they're amongst the top players in the world. You can see when you look in the eyes of an Aaron or a Gareth or a Ben Davies or whoever, that they really believe in themselves. They've got a chance now to go out on the world stage and to play against the top nations of the world at the biggest football festival you can get, which is a World Cup, 211 countries. The audiences just knock everything else out of the ballpark. You can talk about the Olympic Games, for example. The viewership figures for a World Cup are astronomical. So for us, for Cymru to be on the world stage, for them guys to have brought us there, can do more than just for football, I hope. I mean, we talk about the research results, say that football being the #1 interest and participation sport. It's about growing sport itself, because even the research, for example, it talks about the public want us to do a lot more about child obesity. They want us to do more about mental health, for example. And us qualifying for a World Cup is magnificent for Cymru. But at the same time, it's what it can do in terms of there's finances that come from it, there's interest that comes from it into Wales, into the country itself. And what that can do in terms of economic driver on the country is quite a lot, actually. And it's something that we'll engage with the Welsh Government on, should we be successful on the 5th of June. And even still, with the Nations League, we're going to the Netherlands very soon, we're going to Belgium very soon. We should do more sports diplomacy with the countries. Football is by far and away the biggest sport across the continent of Europe. We represent that, and we should really use that to advantage in trade negotiations, in sports diplomacy all across Europe, definitely. Now, what's important for us to remember is that we're managing to put Cymru on the world stage without a whole lot of support, to be quite honest with you, from outside of football itself. So we need a lot more support. The figures are fantastic, what we can do for communities, and that is sometimes in spite of the support that we get rather than because of. So we are calling on the government, we're calling on the local authorities to work really closely with the FA of Wales and other sports, of course, to drive sport, because we spend a lot of money on hospitals, which quite rightly, we spend a lot of money on schools, but at the same time through football and physical health and all of the benefits that come from that, we believe that money should be spent a lot more on communities using sport, and obviously in our case communities using football. Now we're looking to move the FAW from a football organisation, which it always will be, but towards more a football association of wellness. So we believe that if we take up more of the wellness space, which is our clubs being hubs for mental health, for physical health in the community, we can exponentially continue to grow the sport and go from 40% of children playing to a lot more, to go from 17% of adults playing football to a lot more. And that's the challenge that lies in front of us. Us qualifying for the World Cup has a big step in that, but with the support of the Welsh Government, with the support of our 22 local authorities and other partners here in Cymru, very good companies that I've met recently that are interested in working with the FAW, I think we can go to a whole new level, and that's what my job is to do with the board and the council here at the FAW.
It's fascinating because things are put in place. You seem like a man in a hurry to get things done, which is great, but also looking back at what was put in place years ago now, in days of Gary Speed, Osian Roberts put a plan in the Welsh way, and 10 years on, we're seeing the growth, we're seeing the benefits of what happened. So obviously you want to see results straight away, but also as a, what's the long-term view as well,
Well, first of all, you make a very important point, because now's a new chapter, I suppose, because you have a new CEO, a new president, and different things happening, of course, and there's new staff joining, and it's exciting, it's a time of evolution. But it's really important to remember where we are coming from. I remember growing up, and I have to say Wales, apart from some iconic players like a Mark Hughes and Ian Rush or Neville Southall, they weren't seen as a great force in world football, clearly. Then Gary Speed came along, and what he did, I mean, last Saturday we had 350 coaches from all over Cymru and all over the world in the Celtic manner, talking about the new ways of coaching, the evolution of coaching. We had Tim Cahill from Qatar, we had people from all over the world. I mean, really, I was blown away by it. And to see the legacy that the likes of Gary has left, who didn't accept being second best. He believed that our teams should have world-class facilities and world-class support. I mean, you can see it around here. I mean, if you get a Gareth Bale out there saying that our facilities are comparable to the Real Madrids or that's important to us, that we can give services to a Jess Fishlock or a Sophie Ingle that they get at their clubs, of course. We're there with that. We continue to evolve in that. But also if you look at what Osh did, for example, on the whole coaching education, when we are booked out in coach education all across Cymru, it's a very important factor what Osh and Gary and Chris then brought on and different people. What they've built is spectacular here. We're really lucky. We get to take it on at a time, grab the baton at a time where it's really good. Obviously our job is to make it even better, and we should remember what Gary said, which is don't settle for second best, aim to be the very best. High performance is not just off the pitch, it's not just on the pitch, I should say. We launched our high performance strategy last Saturday night in front of a large audience here in Cardiff. But high performance is also off the pitch, and how good are we in terms of equality, diversity and inclusion? Jason Webber and Caris lead on that here, but I think we're being recognised as a very good organisation for how we're trying to diversify and bring new people into Welsh football. Later this summer we'll launch Sustainability, the Wellbeing for Future Generations Act with the government, with Sophie Howe. We've got a sustainability strategy which I think is as good as anything in the world. And if I go throughout the whole organisation, our job is to be the best at women and girls football, is to be the best at grassroots football, is to be the best at coach education, which clearly we're on a very good track from the likes of what Gary and Osh did. But right throughout how we engage with fans, soon we'll bring in our first full-time people just to work with what fans want, the clothes they wear, the music they want to hear. So we're trying to listen. That's really important to us. It's important to me because I'm not from Wales, of course. I'm here to do a job, is to get the FAW to be one of the best sports organisations in the world.
Does that help in a way though, sorry to interrupt, that you're coming from a different angle?
Definitely. There's no doubt about that, because I don't know anybody here, so I don't owe anybody. I don't owe anybody. I come from a small country, Ireland myself. I've managed the FAI, and when you go into a country, it's an FAI I grew up in. So I knew people when I was a junior coming in. When you would go back as the CEO, you've got lots of different webs of relationships that you don't even know, you can't even describe, but there's layers of relationships there. There's all sorts of history there. Whereas when you come to a country where it's not yours, even though my family's from Wales, I said my sister and brother are both Welsh and very much Welsh supporters, I didn't know anybody. And that was important because, you can just make decisions based on evidence and based on data. And I suppose like the research we have there, it's not our research, it's independent research that says the popularity of football continues to grow. We're just about to open our Insights and Research Centre here at the FAW, which is a big step for us. So it means that any decision we make, whether we play at, Cardiff City Stadium, or we play at Swansea, we play at Wrexham's new stadium, hopefully that will be built, or whether we play in McCuntlet, it doesn't matter, that it's based on insights data, that it's based on what do people want. So I think we do a really good job. There's great people here like IG, Ian Gwynn, and many other people know here who've built a great reputation for the FAW and Cymru and what we do. But we'll continue to evolve. For example, this summer we're looking at the festivals, the music festivals, the film festivals around Cymru to see how can we get involved in that? How can we look at fashion, music, and things that are important to people? Because it's not all about football. Music's very important to many of us. Fashion's important to many of us. Our culture, language clearly is a major part of the FAW. I would say language, the Welsh language, the work that S4C do and Sgorio do is you can feel it, you can live it, you can breathe it. Every day I come in here, I can feel the pride of the staff for the Welsh language. We're all under pressure to speak Welsh, I can promise you that now. IG has promised me we're doing lots of Welsh lessons for the next few months. I'll do an interview one day with you in Welsh very soon, I hope. But I think people can see that we listen. And that's important to me, is that we listen to everybody. We definitely can't do everything that everyone wants. It wouldn't work like that. We will definitely make decisions that may not seem the most popular in the world. But what I do absolutely promise you and anybody involved in Welsh football, we'll always make the right decision, what we think is right at the time, and it'll always, and coming from a different country, it'll always be based on evidence, data, and what's the right thing to do, not because of a relationship or because of a history. It's only because it's the right thing to do at the FAW. And by doing that, we can definitely become one of the best sports organisations in the world.
You mentioned Machynlleth. I lost a football game 18-1 in Machynlleth once, so we don't want to go back to Machynlleth. Bont reserves, 18-1. Disaster.
No, well, you just mentioned the fans there, and when you came in, were you perhaps surprised at the level of passion that we have? Because I know you're very active on Twitter. You love to get involved with the fans. Just how much do they mean, I guess, to you, but also the FAW in general?
I have to be honest, I didn't know. I'm going to come clean on that. I knew that there was good sports. I was there in 2016 working for UEFA at the time. So I was going around with a shiny UEFA suit, but I saw the bucket hats and I was at some of the matches. I was at the Belgium game in Lille. I was in Lyon for the, it was fantastic. I was in Lyon for the semi-final against Portugal. And I really got a sense of what it meant to the people there that summer. That was a magical summer. I was glad to see it from I suppose the UEFA side or from the other side, if you will. But it was, you knew something special was happening. I just wish I was here then, on this side, with the likes of IG and all of our people going to that tournament and seeing that. But I saw the other side, and you knew something special was happening. Since then, it's grown. I think Euro 2020, which I suppose turned out to be Euro 21, was a bit different because people couldn't really go. It was in Baku and Rome and different things. It was all over the place. I think even for the players, if you speak to the likes of Garrett, for example, he would talk about 2016 being an incredible time. Even though it was a Euro in 2020, it was a bit different because of the pandemic, etc. But what I have to say is the supporters are not just a normal support. They're not ones that just go to matches and shout and that's it. It's actually kind of like a lifestyle almost. You can see it. There's a community of people that are in contact with each other. I see that when I go to grassroots events, people will come to you and they're in clusters and they're Welsh supporters who, the fashion is important, music clearly is important, the language is important. So there's a brilliant video on Copa 90 that came out of Cardiff Met and some people from our support group about the Welsh language and what it means to them. What shocked me was when I went to Prague and to Tallinn in the autumn last year, and we were in bars and there's people just talking Welsh all over the place. And for me, as an Irish person, who is very proud of our own language, it was beautiful to hear people from Cymru talking to each other in Welsh, really proudly about it, and also encouraging people who don't speak Welsh like myself to come in to learn the language. And S4C do a fantastic job. I think the announcement recently where we will have our matches, our men's national team games live on S4C is really important for the FAW. Never mind for S4C or for anybody else. For us and for our supporters, it's really important insofar as we can control it, which is important to say, because obviously we're not quite in control of all of our rights because they're centralised. But the fact that they're on S4C in the native language, which everyone's so proud of, is really important to the brand of Cymru. For us, it's a disaster when we're not on S4C. It's a really bad thing for us when we're not on our native channel. As I say, it's not something we can always control, and I hope that people can know that. It's the same as club football. I mean, if it's Champions League, I mean, Manchester United don't get to choose where they're shown. At the end of the day, it's the people who are responsible for selling the rights will choose what channel it's on, depending on the offer, whatever that is, because we have to fund the game as well. We are considerably supported from UEFA in terms of our grassroots. Later this year, we'll announce a very big grassroots facilities fund of many millions of pounds that will transform the game here in Cymru. We'll have hundreds of clubs that will be building pitches, building dressing rooms, putting up goalposts and corner flags and all sorts of things to fill in, to kind of feed into our wellness space concept, the wellness movement we're looking to build across Cymru, but also to grow that 40% children and 17% adults who already play football. We want to get the numbers much higher, and we also want to intertwine that with the Welsh language, with equality, diversity, inclusion, and with sustainability, which is really important to us. We've got to change. It's difficult to say that when you're successful, because people say, it's going fine, why would you change? Because if you want to be really great, we've got to improve our media output, to be honest with you, which is new digital technologies, for example, that are coming all the time. For example, new platforms like TikTok and all these are coming. Every day there seems to be something new. How are we evolving to get to young people in particular through them channels? How are we evolving our content and our channels and all that kind of stuff? In terms of things like governance, we're already evolving. We've got 80 massive governance changes that are sweeping through the association right now to make us a sustainable association for the future. So right throughout the full gambit of a football association, we're changing, we're evolving. And the people here deserve it. They deserve a modern, fit-for-purpose association that's challenging the other associations to be the best in the world. And I really hope during my time here with you and with everybody from the FAW that we will achieve that.
It's interesting with the when you're saying the fans and the focus on Wales. I think whichever is the most popular sport, it's great that these stats show it's football. I think it's always been the football nation, but maybe directed at clubs more. We have thousands of fans going to watch English Premier League clubs, it's been a shift certainly since 2016, maybe before then, where it's now focused more on the national team. That seems to be, it's a fascinating sort of shift that's happened in the last few years.
Yeah, I think it's important to say, I mean, the research came out, it's just evidence and data that comes from independent research. I couldn't care less about the national sport. I've heard this before since I came out. I love rugby.
Is that a discussion in Ireland, by the way?
No.
There's so many sports there. People obsessed
they have their
with
own indigenous sport, which is hurling and Gaelic football. So, you know, we would see that probably as the national sport in many ways.
We seem to be obsessed with it here.
Yeah, I don't understand it, to be honest with you. As I come from rugby country and from Limerick, I'm very good friends with Steve Phillips and the guys in WRU. We talk sport a lot. And the stronger rugby is in Wales, the better. I mean, really, I go to the Six Nations games like everybody else. I don't wear the daffodils. I draw the line at wearing daffodils. But I really enjoy going to the games, to be honest. We've got a really good relationship here with WRU, I have to say. They're in really good condition. I hear the national debate about the WRU, about how things are not going great there. They're in a really strong position. There's many things I look at that they do and I say they do them really well. So we're very close to the guys there. That said, our job is to drive football here. That is very much my passion, and the team at the FAW and our board and council. So we can only do the best we can do for football. What I would say is the supporters shocked me, because I didn't know, for example, when I came here, that they don't actually play the anthem. I didn't know that. So now I realised the first game we were at, it was Estonia at home. Probably didn't play the greatest that night, we couldn't score. And it turned out that the goalkeeper was actually a friend of my wife's family, which is a different story. My wife is Estonian. But hearing the fans singing the anthem, and it's just got progressively stronger and better. I suppose the Daffod Ewan Yamohid at the last game, which was very much, I have to say, an IG idea here, which I didn't know if it would work, to be honest with you. We try things, sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. But we have to be vulnerable here, and we have to take chances, and we have to make mistakes. And we have to encourage everybody here that we're going to make mistakes if we're trying to be great. And on that occasion, I came out, I was actually with Adam Price, funny enough, and I walked out to see Yamohid being sang. I have to be honest, I didn't quite know the significance of it. It was explained to me where the song came from and its significance to people here. And when I understood it, I understood why it means so much to people. I don't know if I should say this, but I know that it's going to be played again, and Daffyd will be there on the 5th of June for the World Cup final playoff for us. And that's pretty special for us. It's pretty special for the nation. Our matches have become quite, I suppose, iconic events in Welsh life, in Welsh society. And we have to keep building on that. We can't stop. We have to keep looking at how do we do things better. And we've got a brilliant team of people here who keep looking to see how do we do things better. So we're full of joy, I suppose, in our hearts for what we're doing. We're full of energy. I hope you can pick that up from me and from our team, that we're really excited about what we're doing in the future. We want to work with other sports. I think that's important to say. There's other sports that don't have the resources that we would have for football, for example. I'm very good friends, for example, with people from hockey, from cricket, etc. And if we can help, and vice versa, by the way, there's areas that they can help us as well to make Cymru a stronger sporting nation. That's it. In football terms, from the minute I got here, I really felt a strong football vibe. I mean, whether it's going to see Cardiff City, for example, which is the first thing I did when I got here because it's right beside where I live. I went down to see Cardiff City and the guys there, I really enjoyed it. Then you go to Swansea City, and then that takes me to the next part, which is the research does show that there has been a reduction in interest in our Cymru Premier Division. Now, that is where, we go from going, okay, things are going really well, to, whoa, hang on a second. If we're using research and insights to drive what we do here, we have to look at the things that aren't working so well, and we have to look at the things that we can really drive forward. So my own view, and this is something that we'll work through over the next few weeks with the board and with our council, is I think we need to do a review of our Cymru Premier Division. I think we need to really look at the size of it, the investment in it, the professionalisation of the game that's happening all over Europe, what kind of quality players are coming out of our academies and out of the Cymru Premier Division. And I think that's where, being a sports administrator, that's where you earn your corn, I guess. That's where we will earn our corn, or not work in some cases. We're going to have to make, I think, some big decisions around the Cymru Premier Division, and we can't shy away from them. I was in Ireland many years ago where we had a similar situation to where we are now here, actually, where stadiums weren't really where they should be, where the crowds weren't where they should be, and they've made a lot of progress there. It's still not perfect, but they've made a lot of progress. I see a lot of the games are sold out this weekend. The likes of Shamrock Rovers are 7,000 or 8,000 people now at home games. The likes of Derry City and others getting big crowds now. We don't have that yet here. And that's something, I suppose, if I think about one of the big challenges we have, the Cymru Premier Division is one that I'm looking forward to really setting my own sights on and saying, what do we do? Now, what we're hoping to do is to do a very good media rights deal with hopefully someone like S4C who already do a really good job. So we're very lucky that we've got a good partner in S4C. But we need to widen our delivery of the league, whether that be infrastructure, whether that be more full-time staff, players, a better league, basically. I've been lucky enough to work with many leagues around Europe during my time at UEFA. I have a good sense that we can do a really good job here. And I think that towards the end of the summer, we'll look to do a review of the league and really go for it with the likes of our partners, S4C and other partners.
We obviously cover the league. We love the league. We know what's there. How many other leagues around Europe have the best clubs in the country playing in another country, I guess? When you've got Cardiff, Swansea, Wrexham, Newport, even Merthyr, you've got 5 big clubs there that aren't part of it. So is it always going to struggle?
No, it won't always struggle, that's for sure. I mean, once we have the right plan, we can solve a lot of the issues, but it does have specific geographical challenges with a number of the clubs playing in England. Some of them I don't understand why. There's 1 or 2 clubs I actually don't understand because they're playing Division 7 or something of the English League. I don't understand why you would do that when you can play in our league and qualify for Champions League, which surely is a much more attractive option. But as we grow the sports here and as Welsh football gets stronger, as the FAW gets stronger and has more resources and more partners and all the things we will do, I think we'll be able to provide a home for 1 or 2 of them clubs that will really want to play here, and it'll be the right thing for them to play here. We've had Colwyn Bay come back in the last couple of years. And if you ask the people from Colwyn Bay, they've gone from strength to strength since they came back. I mean, you know, I was at a couple of their games this year. You know, they were in the 1,000. You know, where they're getting
incredible fan base.
Yeah, and like I look at the likes of Merthyr, for example. Personally, I'm not altogether sure where they're going or what they're doing. What I do know is that they've got a lovely little stadium there in Merthyr. I was in Merthyr last night. I was actually in Pennydarren for the Ardal South League Cup final between Tre Thomas and Cardiff Drax.
Oh, excellent.
And yes, and Tre Thomas won.
It's a great ground, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? It's a fantastic. It was a brand new artificial turf pitch. I didn't know about it until I went there last night, and I was absolutely blown away by just everything about it. You know, the culture of Merthyr, which I knew about because it's post-industrial town, etc. I enjoyed driving around Merthyr just to get that sense. Then I arrived at the ground, and there was, I don't know, was there 350 people there right around the pitch, and it was a real, you know, proper Cymru cup tie type thing. It was great. But what we've got to is build many of them around the place. But I look at, as I say, the likes of Merthyr, and look, it's up to them what they choose to do. But as we build more enticements, I suppose, more supports, more love for our Cymru Premier Division clubs over the next couple of years, then for me it would seem a logical step for them to try and qualify for Europe. They keep talking about Atalanta they played, you know, and if they come and play in the Cymru Premier Division, you know, over time, then they could play at Atalanta again. Otherwise they'll end up playing, you know, I don't know what division it is, but they'll end up playing small England teams for a long time, whereas they should be here with us. And they should really go for Champions League.
It's I always feel like the Cymru Premier is almost like the ugly duckling of Welsh football. You know, there's so much potential there, but it's not quite as loved as it should be, because like Dylan said, you know, we're there at these games every week covering the games, and like I adore it. I absolutely love the league, and it doesn't get the love that it deserves from the wider public.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that, because as I saw this before, maybe a decade ago in Ireland, where people like yourselves who were working really hard to promote something that may have seemed unloved, as you said, you know, felt that they were fighting against something almost. You know, they were trying to make this successful despite, again, the support they should have been getting rather than because of the support they were getting. You fast forward a decade later, and I know them same people, and they can see full stadiums. They can see their teams doing better in Europe. They can see them producing better players. So my advice to you, stick with it. Stick with us, and we will produce a much better league. I think we have to be clear on what our focus is at the FAW. So when I arrived last August, September time, what I would have done was analyse with the board the issues that we're facing. And clearly there was a really bad grassroots facilities set up here. So the FAW itself has invested very heavily over the last decade in our facilities where we are today here in Hensel, in Collier's Park up in the north, and in Dragon Park up near Newport. All three wonderful sites that are very good for our national teams, for our development as a sport. So as an investment, they were very good. That said, there was very little investment in the grassroots of the game, which is our 953 clubs, our 19,000 volunteers, our 120,000 players we're heading towards. There wasn't an awful lot of investment from us in them. And to be frank, there wasn't much investment from the Welsh government and in grassroots facilities. I mean, it really is third world. I have to be clear on that. Coming from Ireland, which is just a short swim away, or from England, what we can see in our stats, or from Switzerland, where I was for the last 10 years, we've a long, long way to go. And if people don't wake up and realise we've got to invest up to £300 million is the figure that we've just been given from an independent audit of Wales, what we need to invest in the grassroots facilities to get us up to scratch. So we need to be really honest here and say we can't accept second best anymore. We can't accept third world anymore. We need great facilities like we saw in Pennydarren last night, all across Wales, to really drive the nation forward in terms of health, happiness, mental health, you know, the wellness movement we talk about. We need that, that funding very, very badly. And if we don't achieve that, then the long-term sustainability of Welsh football is not good. So that investment in the grassroots game is what I would have put to the board and to the council as a real priority for us. So just before last Christmas, we had a shareholder meeting of the council, and we agreed that that was going to be our investment focus. So, you know, when I talk to the Cymru Premier Division clubs, I'd be lying if I said that, you know, we're going to put millions and millions of pounds into the Cymru Premier Division and make it like the Champions League. That wouldn't be quite truthful. What would be truthful is that we're going to invest very heavily in grassroots football. We're going to put tens of £millions over the next few years into pitches all across Wales. But in amongst all of that, once we do our review over the next 6 to 12 months, we will have a roadmap for the Cymru Premier Division, and what you'll find is there'll be a lot of love for the Cymru Premier Division coming from us. It's just that we can't do everything at one time. We can do it incrementally, which we're kind of doing at the moment. But I think there's definitely a gear change to come from us at the FAW, and at the end of the day, we're responsible for it. You know, we get great support from S4C, for example, from other people, but we've got to gear change ourselves. We need to really step up our game. And as I say, from the research that's just come out, that was a standout for me. I didn't really look so much at the good stuff, to be honest with you. I was kind of focused on the things we can be better at. And definitely domestic professional football here in Cymru, despite the specificities of our geography, is something we need to really step up.
It must be so hard to prioritise, because you want to do everything, don't you? You want to magic wands, sort everything out in Welsh football. Cash is king, everything costs. How hard are those judgment calls?
Do you know, it's a funny one, because actually we've done a lot of commercial planning here recently, and with the popularity of the game, I think there's a lot more in us in terms of bringing global brands and global partners who partner with Welsh football. I think we need to be more confident going out into the world. I think we're a very attractive brand to be involved with. We've got a kind of, I hope, a kind of pureness about us and a desire to improve about us that people can kind of see. They can see we're very genuine in what we're trying to do. There's zero hidden agendas. There's no politics amongst us. Everyone's accepted the need for change from the top to the bottom. Everyone's uniform going in the same direction, which is crucial. So any partner out there looking to get involved in sports or anything to drive their own brand, we're a perfect home for them because we're just going in the right direction. So I think there's a lot more revenues for us to bring in to Welsh football, which make the decisions easier then. We're lucky here in that, for example, the WRU have to pay a lot of players' wages. That's something I wouldn't envy, I have to say. Even though it's a really good thing because it's developing the game, and they've got the 4 regions and they have to fund them, and that's a difficult thing to do. We don't have that, and I think we have to say that's a big advantage that we have. We don't fund players' wages, we fund the sport itself. So what we should do, and we will do, is to invest more in our professional league here, make it more professional for a start, and drive that forward. But in terms of finances, the FAW is in a good position. We are, you know, have done all the analysis of our reserves, of our future incomes, of our planned expenditures. We've done a budget, or a business plan, I should say, until 2028 that the board have agreed and signed off on. And even after we had that signed off, we can still see new revenues coming in. So it's kind of a very exciting period for us because we have resources, we have funds, we need to bring in a lot of new people who make us much better, and we need to invest more into the grassroots of the game and invest more into the women and girls side of the game, which is exploding. What I have to tell you is that we are not prepared for the amounts of girls and women that are going to want to play football by the end of this summer. I have to be honest with that, because I think this Euro that's taking place next door this summer is going to be absolutely spectacular. I only kind of started processing it properly, to be honest, last week when I saw a presentation by Nadine Kester, the chief of women's football in UEFA, who's a great friend. She presented the ticket sales for the matches. You're looking at sold out Wembleys and sold out Old Traffords, like you've seen in the women's game across Europe in the last year, you know, sold out new camps. This thing is turning really quickly, and we're lucky here because we've great people like Lowry, who drives forward the women's game, Gemma, of course, who's the manager of the national team, a load of great female coaches. We've got the likes of Laura McAllister and that around the FAW helping to guide us on women's football. And I have to say, I think that we'll be a real leading nation globally in women's football. We're lucky that we've got Gemma. We're really lucky we've got her. And we're going to drive on. The problem we'll have is that when we've got thousands and thousands of girls looking to play, do we have the dressing rooms? Do we have the pitch space? Do we have the coaches? That is a concern to me for the end of the summer, and it's one that we have to work furiously to try and address.
I wanted to ask you about Gemma Granger and her team, because of course, you know, the main focus at the moment is the men's team's games, but the women's team, they've got massive games coming up in September. And for me personally, when I think of that Women's World Cup, Australia, New Zealand 2023, I know you've said the Euros this summer is going to be exciting, but you get the feeling that tournament will change every single country. It will change the women's game globally. Just how much do you want Wales to be a part of that?
Massively. Probably not as much as Gemma, because she is the most driven person I think I've ever met.
Shauna, just fancies a trip.
Well, it will be a spectacular trip. You're quite right, Shauna. Like Australia, New Zealand will be a spectacular World Cup to be at, and I think we've got a really good chance. I can see the team building all of the time. France down in Cloneckley, I thought, was a really good performance. We made a couple of errors, but we went toe to toe with the best teams in the world, and we're getting more like that where we can. There's a confidence sweeping through it. But what gives me confidence, I have to say, is watching Gemma's preparation for these camps. Detail, fine margins. Ooh, I mean, it's pretty spectacular, her preparation for the games. So we can't be unsuccessful with this thing. We have to be successful, because the players we have, the management we have, the conditions we have here for the players. We are the biggest spending football association in Europe, possibly the world, at women's football, by the way, as a percentage of our turnover. So we spend more on the women's national teams than the men's national teams, for example.
That's fascinating.
They've got very, in terms of care, in terms of, you name it, chartered flights, dressing rooms, care for the national teams. It's really spectacularly here. I mean, and so it should be. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, no,
and we're working towards lots of different things to make sure that this brilliant women's national team we have, and not just the seniors, by the way, all the youth teams that are coming through. We've had some great results at under 16s and 17s, for example. We have a lot of talent coming through. But if you look at our senior team, for example, you've got the likes of Hayley Ladd and Carrie at Manchester United. You've got Jess, who's the MVP in America. Sophie's just won the league at Chelsea. Right throughout the side, there's stars in that side. But for me, what's important, and this is important for the FAW, they're not stars in terms of just how they play. The stars as human beings. We've got values here, family, respect and excellence. And one thing I was struck about when I came here is whether you're Jess Fishlock or whether you're Gareth Bale or whoever they are, they've got really nice values, all of them. They really gel well together. And if someone doesn't fit because their values, they don't fit. I've seen it here, where players who are very good players, they just don't fit the Welsh way. They don't fit with our values, and they don't last. So, like, if you look at Rob, what he's done with the men's national team, taking on a very difficult situation, coming in as an interim manager, and managing the thing really, really well. The players really like him. We're really happy with him going into these games. Win, lose or draw on the 5th of June, Rob is doing a magnificent job with the men's team. Gemma, win, lose or draw, get us to the World Cup in Australia, New Zealand. I know it's a trip you'd love to have, but as we all would. But it's actually a free shot for us, to be frank, because what we've budgeted for in our head, I don't mean financially, but what we've budgeted for in terms of the development of Welsh football is to play in a major tournament over 4 years, which would be the next Euros, in fact. So this one is one that if we qualify, we're ahead of time. When Gemma came in, it was two tournaments with qualification for the second tournament was what the FAW would demand, I guess is the best way of putting it. Gemma's fully bought into that, and everything she's doing is going towards that. But knowing Gemma, she's so ambitious and so driven, she will believe, and she does believe we can qualify. It depends, like obviously we've got Greece away, Slovenia at home. Slovenia at home will break records, I've no doubt, with the audiences. We're in Cardiff City Stadium. I'll be disappointed if we don't get 10,000 people supporting Cymru that night. Then, if them two games go well, which I have no reason to think they wouldn't, because we'll be so well prepared, then we go into a playoff, and then it's down to fine margins like it will be on June the 5th. So it's everywhere I look here, it's kind of exciting times. Whereas the women's national team after the summer, or it's the men's team coming up. I mean, we're going to Poland on Monday because the first game is on Wednesday, and then we go into a cycle of a bubble, really, of match. It's a lot to ask, because one of the things we don't have here is a very, very wide pool of players, I suppose, compared to a France or a Germany. So Rob has a lot of tough decisions and balancing to do, which no better person to do it. Trying to balance games against the Netherlands home and away, against the best players on the planet. Here you've got the likes of Virgil van Dijk and these, players of Barcelona and all these clubs playing for them. Belgium, I don't know if they're not number one team in the world, they're two or something. We saw what they're like when they come here. Kevin De Bruyne put on a masterclass when he came here last year. But whatever it is about us, we feel that we can take on anybody. Poland, of course, had Lewandowski and a number of world-class players. So everywhere we look over these 5 games, it's massive, massive, massive 5 times. But, you know, thankfully over, as you said, the years gone by, what Gary built and what was brought on by Chris and what Rob has brought on since, have us strong and have us ready for the challenges that we face coming up.
Yeah, and then after all that, do you get a holiday at all?
That's a very good question. It's a funny one because I actually talk about a holiday in the summer. I actually don't want one. So if my wife is watching this, I really don't want to go on holidays. Because to be honest, it's all a holiday really here. I know it's what you call work hard. It's work hard, but you do it for free because it's so exciting. It's something that, you know, if I could afford to and I had no bills whatsoever, you would, because, you know, it's just challenge and progress and positive energy, to be frank. Everywhere I look, it's just there's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough, there's just not enough brain cells you have to be able to get to all of the things that you want to get to. But what I would say is we keep going back to what was the strategy we set out to do. The strategy we had is our Wales. It's got 6 big pillars in it. We're very clear on what we need to do. And let's deliver that strategy well. Let's focus on certain areas, grassroots facilities, for example. Hosting Euro 28 is a very big thing for us, by the way. And having it here in Cardiff, having massive tournament here in Cardiff, which would be great fun for all of us in 28, should we be successful in winning the bid. But there's loads and loads of other things that we're working on within them 6 pillars. So it's important, you know, that we have on our wall upstairs the 6 pillars that we're going to deliver. We stay focused on them, we deliver them. There will be other things that we do, because it never stays quite still like that. But there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to. I always remember Chesney Hawkes had one song, and he had no more. And I feel it's an exciting time for Welsh football now, because it feels like we're in the recording studio, recording lots of hit songs that we know when the public see them, they will be very excited and they'll really buy into them. And I can't wait to get them out. The communications team here, I think I annoy them a lot, because you know something's ready to go out and they're like, we have to wait till Tuesday. And I'm like, no, we have to do it now. Get it out. There's loads more coming. That's the good news. So I can sit here with you in a lot of confidence and a lot of positive energy around the fact that there's a lot more coming. We've only kind of got into the early parts of it. As we go further into this, you'll see a lot of really positive things happening. Even for example, I'm really excited about the sustainability strategy. We'll be the top federation, in my view, in the world, following the Welsh Government's Wellbeing Act, as I said, the piece of legislation that nobody else has, which is preparing for the future. The Football Association of Wales will go out front on this. We're hoping to present this to 210 other countries later in the summer as a world-leading thing. And we've got this saying here, Cymru on the world stage. And I think the things we do over the next few months will definitely do that. This is the difficult part with sport. If we do qualify on the 5th of June, then that accelerates that much faster, I suppose. So if we don't, it's okay. You know, we'll do all the things we're going to do. And we'll do them maybe with even more determination. I don't know if we don't win on the 5th of June. But if we do qualify, it just accelerates everything much faster. Straight away then you're planning to bring Cymru on the world stage. For example, with the Welsh Government, what kind of, as I said, trade talks can we have? You know, especially with playing the USA and England and Iran in our group. What kind of things can we do for the country, not just for football, that will make us a better country?
I was going to ask actually, say, I know we don't want to jinx anything, but say when that final whistle goes and it has happened, what changes on that minute? You know, what changes for Welsh football?
Well, the practical side, I think, is important to say is that, you know, there's probably £4 or £5 million, probably closer to 5, in practical terms, that goes back into development of Welsh football. The vast majority that would go back into grassroots facilities.
Much bigger than the Euros in that sense, because we've been to 2 Euro tournaments.
Financially, funnily enough, not really. So, I mean, the figures are actually public. I mean, to get to Euro 2020 was €9.75 million. To get to World Cup 2022 is $10.5 million, which are relatively similar, to be fair. Now, what you do is you have to pay all the operations out of that and different things. And we have the player bonuses and all that kind of stuff that you'd imagine from any tournament. But still, you would see a huge chunk of change that can go straight into grassroots football in Wales, which is really exciting, I would say. We also have things like in our sponsorships that we would have clauses that say that we get extra bonus payments, of course, which would shift the dial upwards there. But not just that, I think, you know, future partners future, how we work with different people, it just changes the dynamic of the conversation. You know, even our ticket sales, for example, our seasons ticket sales, wherever we have our memberships, they all go up. It's also confidence in the organisation. Things like, for example, employment, like trying to hire people, recruitment. You get different, as we build up the brand of the FAW and of Cymru, different qualities of people from different backgrounds want to be part of it. I can see we're doing a number of recruitment processes at the moment, and the quality of candidate that's coming forward that wants to be part of Welsh football is really improving all the time. It's increasing all the time, and that's exciting for Welsh football because we'll see new people come in, hopefully people that will be able to represent us to government and to local authorities and to institutional bodies that can create relationships that really take us to a new level, because we can't do it on our own. It has to be Cymru as a nation together, stronger, doing it. And that's, again, probably my only concern, is that Cymru doesn't believe in itself enough and doesn't get behind itself enough. Because
not a very confident nation,
No.
are we?
No. And like, to be world class at sport and to be great in communities and to have the facilities you need and the league you need, you don't do that by piddling around with, you know, just moving the deck chairs a bit. That doesn't work. To really be great at something, and I had a good conversation actually with Tim Cahill, an extreme example, albeit from Qatar, on how their national team have improved dramatically through better facilities and better conditions for the players. To be fair, the FAW over the last decade or so have really got their house in order with care for the players. It's really top. But in terms of continuing that development and producing a lot better players in the future and producing a better country with happier, healthier people through better communities, you know, 1 million here and 1 million there, to be really frank with you, won't move the dial. It needs to be tens and hundreds of millions. So that's the challenge for Cymru as a nation. And that actually will be probably the only thing I can think of that would make me not want to stay and be part of it, is if the country doesn't really believe in itself and get behind what we have. It's a very exciting time, but we also need partners to come with us in the journey. And if the partners aren't there, then that's the only fly in the ointment, I would say, of the next few months.
Finally, Noel, because I'm conscious of time, and this might be a weird question to ask someone who's only 10 months into the job, but what would you like your legacy to be as CEO of the FAW?
I'd like us to be the best football association in the world. I'd like us to be spoken about as one of the best sporting organisations in the world. So there's certain examples. If you look at the All Blacks in rugby, for example, on the pitch, certainly, they're seen as quite a special group. They're seen as having values and things that transcend even sport. For example, when I was at UEFA, we brought them in to talk about leadership. What does leadership look like? And there's absolutely no doubt that we've all the ingredients that are needed and the right people to make us one of the greatest sports organisations in the world and to be held up as a benchmark for how sport should be operated. What we need is a support infrastructure, an ecosystem around us, whether it be with the likes of the Welsh Government, for example, and our local authorities and other bodies in Wales to really come with us in that journey. If to do, there's absolutely no doubt we'll do that. There's no question in my mind that we will be the best football association in the world. I've seen all the other federations pretty much in the world. I know what it takes to be great. And we're on a good direction here. Like, we're very comfortable that we're in the right direction. It's just as you go through the levels, it's like playing a video game. You might get to a certain level where you get killed in the game. And I'm hoping that we can bring everyone with us so that we don't get killed in the game, that we continue to keep going up to the levels to the very top. And if we believe, which certainly I do, our board certainly does, our staff certainly do, if the rest of the country believe in us and work with us, we can definitely do that. So the legacy should be that we are, 150,000 people playing football, registered regularly in the country. Many, many more people coming to our matches, that we need to keep building up the stadium to get more people in to watch Cymru matches, that it's a real national event to be part of what we do, to build a movement that's talked about around the world, I would say. I think we've definitely got the blocks there to do that. If we qualify for World Cup, qualify for next Euro, which won't hopefully have a pandemic around it, that we can really show to the world that we are an incredible football nation and that we are, as I say, the best football association in the world and certainly one of the best sports organisations in the world. So I hope that's a significant enough legacy to leave behind here in Cymru when I do go.
It's not bad, is it?
No.
No, thanks for your time and thanks for your enthusiasm. It's going to be a hell of a ride. Thanks for mentioning Chesney Hawks as well. Amazing. The one and only Noel Mooney. Brilliant. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome, John.
Brilliant.